Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and welcome back to Kairu Live. My name is Georgex Kairu, and here is where we strive to teach, train, and equip the youth to build work and achieve their dreams. And now I have an amazing show in store of you. My next guest is a content creator, events manager, and person who does a lot to do with fashion. So he has 3 titles in one. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, please help me welcome Eli Mwenda. Bro.
That was quite the intro.
Thank you very much for coming.
Thank
I
you,
appreciate you, man.
Thanks for the
Thank you
invite.
so much. How's your day?
Fantastic, yeah. It's
Good.
It's early, so nothing's happened as of yet, but it started well.
Wow, thank you so much for the honor for coming to the show. I really appreciate. So now, I want us to go to your story.
Yes.
Let us start from the beginning, because as you can tell, guys, our accents, they're not the same. Tell us, born and raised in Kenya or where?
Okay, so born in Kenya, and then I left when I was 2 months old. About 2 months old is what I've been told. Yeah, so about 2 months. Purely because my father and mother were leaving because my dad was doing his masters. And then I was the newborn. So then we moved to the UK, moved to London, and then I've been there up until 2018.
2018.
2018. Then I came back for holiday, and then I've been in Kenya
Since
basically.
2018. 2018, you are how old if I can ask?
2018, I would have been 23.
23.
No, wait. Oh, 26.
26?
26. Yeah.
So now you're about...
I'm 28. 28, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So now I want us to go to, before we get to your career, let us just go to your education, since it's quite different from 844 system or 2663 that the people are doing right now.
Yeah.
So tell us about your high school life, because I think, is it like the movies?
No, here's the thing. No, it's not. It's not. I think most of the movies that you'd see were mostly American based when it comes to schools. You know, with the big lockers, the yellow buses. That wasn't our situation. For me, so school for me, I lived in, so when I first went there, we moved to London, and then after a few years, before I started school, we moved to Oxfordshire. So I did most of my schooling there. I lived in a small town, so even in terms of the school I went to was very small, little Catholic schools. So school for me, I was, as a person, primary school up until the beginning or mid of secondary school, I was a model student. I was very focused, and then as coming of age, secondary school, you start to, mess around a bit. Yeah. But before I get there, so standard schooling. Then after, when I got to year 11, which would be around the age of 15, 16, then we moved to Kent, which is where I finished my GCSEs. We do over there. So yeah, I did my GCSEs there. And then afterwards, I went to university in Kent as well. So that was my schooling period.
Wow.
So,
what did you study in uni?
Public health.
Public health
in uni. Yeah. So very, very different to the conversation.
Public health.
Today. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But like I said, because when you get to the middle point of school, you're, as you say, you're 16, going to 18, coming of age. So even when it came to choosing university and stuff, my love for like academics, it wasn't really there. I was still, I'm trying to be modest, but I was still quite intelligent in terms of schooling, but I wasn't putting the effort in. So then when it got to now going to university, it was like, okay, you need to go to uni. I was like, okay, got decent grades, I guess I'll go to university. So funny story, when I did go to uni for the first year, I went with one of my best friends, and we felt we were the boys, isn't it? So we weren't really focused. We got into the similar unis in the same town. So Freshers Week, the intro week, we didn't focus. Let's put it that way. Didn't focus, and then I started, when I signed on, I was doing bioscience, and that's bioscience. Yeah. So that's a course that you need to focus from day one. Right. So I went there and I started, and I was like, okay, I don't like looking at formulas and stuff all day, but because we were enjoying ourselves too much, when there's a submission date where you can change your course, I missed the submission date. So you've got, I think, 2 or 3 weeks when you start your course to change. So the 2 weeks left, and I was like, I want to change my course, and then they said to me, okay, you're too late. If you want to change your course, you have to come back next year and do the course, or you stick with the course you've got. So I was like, okay, I'm going to come back next year. So
you
I
changed
back,
from biomed.
I went from bioscience to
bioscience
to public health. So because I missed that submission date because of enjoyment.
So you stayed a whole year, just
stayed a whole year. I worked for that year. Which
if
is
I can ask, what work were you doing at that time?
So I worked in retail. I worked in retail for a bit. I worked for my dad. I did some work with my dad, and during that time as well, I started my first clothing line. As well. Yeah.
Namely?
Back then, it was called Stag and Salute.
Yeah.
Stag and Salute. We'll get to business in a bit. There's a few lessons we learned there.
Yeah.
But so then I went. That's when I'm happy that happened, because I kind of started to get a buzz for entrepreneurship. I was like, interesting. Education isn't maybe, the be all end all.
Yeah.
But then after that, I went back to university, did my public health while I was working at the same time.
Can I ask?
Yeah.
Why did you want to choose public health?
So, the famous saying with African parents, you can be a doctor, lawyer, or failure, right?
Yeah.
So they were like, you can be a doctor because you're good at science. Like, you've got good grades in science. And when you're younger, they're like, oh, he's got a really steady hand, he's going to be... that thing.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't want to be a doctor, but I kind of am interested in health. Because I'm not going to do 7 years to be a doctor. So I was like, where's the middle ground? Because that was the plan of bioscience, to start there, then go into that whole line. But then I said, let me do public health. It's in the middle. You're still like talking about health, you're still learning about health, you still can impact with health, but you're not doing the 7 years, and there's still some careers where you're doing a similar job. That's how public health came about. It was very much, not pressure, but it was like, and I always say to people that are younger than me, if you don't have a plan, let someone else give you a plan. So my parents were like, you don't have a plan, do this until you figure out what you want to do.
Yeah, if you don't have a plan.
Let somebody else guide you until you figure it out. So that's how public health came about.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how long was the course?
3 years.
3 years.
3 years. Yeah.
That was from starting 20.
So I started in 2013.
Finished 2016.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So anything that you can say, maybe somebody's doing public health right now in Kenyan universities.
Okay.
Any advice you can give them?
So public health is a really broad subject because, as the name suggests, it's public health. It's not like in one line. So you'll do like epidemiology, you'll do like when it comes to like the more biological side of it. There's so many things that are like entailed into it. So I would say from the word go, before you started the course, find out which bit of public health you want to go down, because you'll learn all of it, but then towards the end, if you want to go and do a master's and things like that, you'll want to start to really focus on one avenue, because the jobs are, I don't know if it's the same in Kenya, but the jobs, once you have that degree in the UK, it's so broad. So you'll find that, you've learned so much, but you've not specified in one. So pick the one you really want to choose.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think we'll get the business part later before we get to what you're doing now. So from 2016 to 2018, what were you doing those 2 years?
That was the most, it was a really interesting time. So as soon as I graduated, the next day I went to America, the next day. So we did like a family holiday. I relaxed, I chilled, and I was like, okay, now what do I want to do when I get back? But like I said, when I was, even during university, I was working 2 jobs at the same time. So I worked with my friend who had a tech gaming company, and I also worked in retail still, because I held that job even when I was at uni. So after university, I was like, okay, until I figured out what I want to do, let me carry on doing what I'm doing, right? So when I came back from America, I went back to work in retail, and I was still working with my friend. But what's really interesting is during that 2-year period that you're asking about, because I was working with my friend and he was my age and he was an entrepreneur. So he had his own business, and I was like, how is my best friend employing me? And I was like, this is interesting. And so so he was making so much money, and I was working, and I'd see the invoices for clients, I'd see how much money is coming into this company, right? It was a family-run company. And I remember one day he was like, I need to go buy a new car. And obviously I was like, okay, yeah, let's go. Well, let's go pick the car together, right? And I was like, what car are you getting? He was like, oh, I'm buying an Audi R8. So I was, the sports car Audi, right? So I was like, so wait a minute, we're the same age, we're working the same job.
Were you buying a car?
Yeah, I spent 3 years in university, you've been doing your business. I was happy with my car, but I was like, we're now going to buy an Audi R8. I was like, something's missing here. So that 2-year period, I was like, no, wait a minute, education's great, but I'm looking at where money is really coming in, because my trajectory would have been after uni, I would have gone and got a standard office job, average salary, and then after 4 years the salary goes up. So I could see my trajectory, and I was like, it's good, it's safe, it works, but it doesn't excite me. I'm not getting an Audi R8 doing this, right?
Yeah.
So from there I was like, okay, I want to focus more on business. So I said this to my parents, I was like, I want to do business. And my dad, because he's a consultant, some of the work that he does meant that I could sort of plug in as a businessman to what he's doing with the company. So he worked for Jaguar Land Rover. So during that time is when Brexit and things was happening. So their company was building a factory in the Czech Republic because that's the center of Europe. So he was on that. I don't know if you want me to include this, but okay. So he was doing that project. So he said, come with me to Czech Republic, work alongside me, and then you can set up a company here, and we can work together. So I was doing that with him, where I learned a lot, and also some of the stuff we do as a family business is property. So I was managing the family house, and we had like tenants. I had like 9 tenants.
Okay.
So that 2-year period, I was all over the place. So I was doing my retail job, I was working with my friend, I was back and forth. We used to go to Czech Republic and then come back on a Friday. So I was doing that, and then I was also working with my friend. So it was like I'd come back on the weekends, work with my friend, and on Monday I'm back in Czech. Then I come back and I'm doing. It was a lot. It was a lot. So as that started to transition, I left my retail job, and most of the stuff I was doing was in business. So that year, so I would say 2017, because I was working alongside my dad, that's where I started to learn like work ethic, especially from my friend as well, to be fair. I'll give him credit where it's due. He taught me a lot of work ethic, you know, managing clients, dealing with clients. So that was where I think, that's what made me realize, okay, I'm not going to do public health. Like, it's great, but...
Something that you studied 3 years for.
Say that again?
Something that you studied for 3 years.
Yeah, something for 3 years, yeah. I was like, yeah, this doesn't interest me. Okay, it interests me, the health interests me, but it doesn't interest me as a career path.
Yeah.
So, yeah, those were really key years for me. I think, yeah, those are the most key years for me.
Wow.
Yeah.
I really want to go back to where 2018, what was in your mind when you were thinking to come back to Kenya? Because Kenyans, like me, I want to go to London, but then you're here, you want to come back to Kenya. Tell us, what was going on in your head? Were you okay?
Yeah. Okay. So, because of those 2 years I mentioned, because obviously now my dad was seeing that I'm reliable when it comes to business, right? So he had a few people in Kenya that needed equipment. I won't go into it, but they needed certain things, right? All legal, by the way.
Okay.
But like there was like some things they needed from Europe. So because he was very busy, he was like, okay, Eli, not Elijah. Could you source this? Could you go to like Amsterdam? Could you go here, find this machine or something, and send it to my friend? So I was like, okay, I can do that. Get my commission, la. So I was like, okay, I started to have a connection with Kenya whereby I'm doing business, I'm sourcing things for people. But that was not through any of my connections, that was just using his connections, right? So then, 2018, this is just before 2018, this is happening. So then we, I don't want to go into too many details, but basically there was a project whereby it meant that we'd have to be in Kenya for a few weeks, right? To do it, it was to do a family business. So I was like, okay. We took a holiday as a family. So we went to Dubai, they did coast, and came to Nairobi. And then that project was supposed to just be supplying somebody something, right? So okay, so we imported, supplied, set up a shop, and then we're supposed to come back to the UK. But within that time period, and this kind of ties into social media and stuff, within that time period, the business did very well. And we're like, okay, why don't we stay here, extend it. So I remember one day, it was my flight, and I was like, no, there's an option here to take a flight back, or to carry on. And so half of us went back, and then I was left here now with my mum for a bit, and then we carried on doing the business that we were doing, and then it just kept going. The flight just kept being pushed, and I was like, I'm not even going to book another one, let's just carry on.
This is in 2018?
2018, when I first arrived. As that's happening on the business side, because I was doing fashion just purely as a hobby, because I've always liked dressing.
In the States? In UK?
In the UK, yeah. You know, I had a clothing brand in school. I'll get into the whole fashion thing later, but I was doing that on social media. I was posting outfit photos. So I found that I started to connect with people when I arrived here. Maybe just because of the geotag, someone's seeing someone in Nairobi, maybe, I don't know. But people started to find me online. So I was like, okay, this is fun as well. So I started to make friends, and I was like, oh, there's a bit of a community here. And there was a feeling of home when I came. I don't know, because there's a saying where they say, go where you're celebrated, not tolerated, right? Yeah. So I felt like when I was here, when I was with my peers, I don't know, it was a different, when I'm going to shops, I just felt celebrated, not tolerated. In the UK, no matter how successful you are, no matter how much money you have, you're still a black person going into a shop, right? So those little things, I wasn't feeling it, and I was like, this is amazing. So business was doing well, social media, I'm meeting people, so I just carried on staying and things have developed.
Now, like, if I can say, the transition process, do you come start eating ugali? Do you know ugali?
Yes, yeah. No, this is the thing. So back home, both my parents are Kenyan. Apart from not knowing Swahili, everything else about Kenya was still instilled
Now,
there.
do you know Swahili?
I'm still working on that. I blame everyone else because everyone talks to me in English, but no, I'm still learning Swahili.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Oh.
don't test me. Don't, I thought you
No, I was actually even looking for a word to
yeah,
actually
exactly.
ask
I was like, yeah, let's not.
you. But it's fine.
Yeah.
Now, 2018, you're back in Kenya. Now, what do you do? Because, Kenya is a different industry, different currency, everything. So how are you able to balance and able to fit into our systems?
Okay, so because most of the stuff I was doing was business, it was a lot of delegating and finding trustworthy people to work with. So, if, for instance, when we opened some of the shops that we have, it was using people we know to get references for other people. So even in terms of dealing one-to-one with customers and things, I wasn't doing that as much. I was more behind the scenes figuring out, strategy and things. So in terms of having to interact and be savvy with specific people, it wasn't that much required. There's some situations where it was, and I've learned a lot in the last few years in terms of even negotiating here is different. Even when it comes to hiring and expectations, work ethic, timelines, those are things that's now been a learning process for me, like operating in that. I experienced it a little bit when I was 2018, when I started to deal with people here, like dealing with businessmen here. I started to realize how different it was, but I didn't understand it. I'll just give an example. So like back in the UK, when you're working with some timelines are very, very strict. Like they're very strict, even in business. Deliverables are much stricter. And there's a lot of gentleman's agreement, it's taken a bit more seriously. So even in 2018, when I started to do business, I found that those, I don't know what to really call it, but it didn't align. It didn't align. You would find that I'd say, okay, 3 p.m. I'll call you, this has to be transferred this time. But then 3:30 comes, 4:30 comes, 5 comes, So I was like, this is different. So those are things that back then I didn't realize, but when I came here, I was like, okay, things are just different. So maybe the first 6 months, I'd get really frustrated with how things are done. But after a while, I was like, this is how things operate here. And now I've just adapted. So in terms of lessons and how operating since I came here, it's just been more of a cultural thing.
So the message you're telling Kenyans is they should keep time.
Yes. And it's from a place of love, because I've seen how efficient people can be. Like working in the Czech Republic, working in like London, I've seen how that translates into results. So especially for our generation, maybe what I would say is maybe that's the norm in terms of like, when you're working in a certain way. Maybe you've seen people work like that for a long time, your bosses have, but just try and still be excellent in timekeeping and deliverables. Yeah.
Oh, so things that have helped you in your business, yeah?
Yes.
Wow. So now, I want us to start about the Insta market. Guys, if you do not know about the Insta market, you're really behind. Now, tell us about how you got about the idea and what you did to make it something big.
Okay. It was actually an accident, if I'm honest. It was an accident. But I think those factors I've mentioned in terms of work ethic and stuff is what made it successful. So from the very start, we're a year and 3 months old. So a year and 3 months ago, I mentioned I was into fashion. So me and my sister, we both had brands, like fashion brands, but my brand was...
Different brands?
Different brands.
Okay.
So my sister was more designing because she's very creative, she's an architect, she draws. Yeah. Mine was, because of the stuff I was doing online, people liked my clothes and they were always saying, where can I get this, where can I get this? And I was like, okay, let me import some stuff because I'm already importing things, let me import clothes. So I imported some clothes and I started a brand called House of Eli. So House of Eli, the concept was, House of Eli was where I import stuff from Europe, you can buy it. You can buy it purely online, right? So this is 2018, so you can buy it purely online. And then Hofeli, which was an abbreviation of that, was stuff that I was designing, like things that I've made. So under House of Eli, there was House of Eli and Hofeli. So I launched it, I did the website, learned a few lessons. I learned that in terms of ordering stuff online, people weren't as accustomed to it in terms of directly ordering just like clothes, because people wanted to like see it or they wanted to buy it via DM, right? So buying on the website it didn't pick up as much as I thought. So I said, okay, since everyone was saying, where can I see the clothes? So I was like, okay, let me take one day, bring my clothes to a marketplace, let people buy it, because people were saying they wanted to come meet me, buy the clothes. So I was like, okay, let's do that. So my sister had the same thing. She was over from university. So she had the same thing where people wanted to see the clothes. So we're like, okay, let's find a market in Nairobi that we can have a stall. So I reached out to all of them. I won't name them, but basically all of them said, no, we're full. And I was like, no, listen, I've literally got people that want to come to your venue. They're going to spend money and they want to buy the stuff. This is not like a brand. I'm using your audience. I'm using mine to come and buy stuff. And they didn't get it. They were like, no, we're busy, we're full. You know, I'll put you on a waiting list. And I was like, I'm not going to go on your waiting list. I'm going to make my own event, right? Yeah. So me and my sister were like, okay, I remember we were in Village Market. We sat down. We're like, how can we, because she was going back in a few weeks, I remember. So we're like, okay, let's just do one market. Like we set up, we get a few other influencers that need to sell stuff, and let's let them come. They sell their stuff, and because their audience will come as well, there'll be a small crowd, and it'll be a cute day, one day, done. So let's set up this Instagram page just for this one event. And then what I did is I talked about this on our live in terms of leverage. So I leveraged like all of my connections, my phone book, texting people. Do you have any stuff you want to get rid of? And they were like, okay, yeah, I do. So if you go back to the page, you'll see all the influencers that were coming to sell their pre-loved stuff. Okay. And so
this was your first event.
Very first event.
And you went to influencers and actually agreed.
Yeah. Because I knew them. I knew them personally.
Oh, you knew them.
And I was saying to them, I was like, okay, if you come, they're gonna make money. They're gonna sell their old wardrobe stuff. That was the whole concept. So the value add for them was that, you know, they're selling the items, they're making money on the day, they get to meet people. It's a cute day out on a Saturday. The value add for the audience was that they're going to meet their influencers, they can buy clothes that they've seen on their Instagram feed. That's a value add for them. Value add for the venue, I've got people coming to spend money. Value add for me is that I've made a small event, I've sold my stuff, and then I close it down. So we got one venue, we locked it down, and
where?
It was called Coffee Casa, really small little cute cafe, right? So let's just do it, we'll do it on the balcony area, it'll be like 10 of us. Then when I put the thing out saying, like, do you want to come to this event? And the influencer started posting it, other influencers were like, no, I want to come as well. So we're like, okay, now we can't fit 10 people here. And then so many small businesses DM me saying, okay, can we come on the day, or was it just influencers? And I was like, interesting. Yeah, come on the day. Fill out this registration form. Let's make a form, fill out this form, pay your money, and then come. And
they were paying money to come.
They pay money to have a table. So then I was like, I did it in reverse. I said, give me the money, I'll find you a table. I didn't know I was going to get a table. So I started receiving all these applications. I think the first one we had like 70 vendors, I think. So we were like, okay, from 10, it's gone to this.
So you changed the location?
I had to change location.
To where?
To Deja Vu.
Deja Vu, okay.
Yeah. So, and that was even a struggle as well, because the space there was crazy. So, so that first event, so what we had in total was we had these influencers, we had a section of influencers, a section of small businesses, all there on one day. And then the build up, we took a month to anticipate this. So like, you know, we were marketing for a month. And so me and my sister were always good at social media, but this was the first time we're going to actually do marketing. Like there's a reason for this marketing, not just us. So found out we're very good at it. We were very efficient, using the leverage we had, using the venue we had. And on the day it was so successful, like you couldn't move when I don't know if you were around for the first one.
No.
It was packed. There's videos on the feed. And then we even had like a few food vendors. The venue was like, what's going on? Like this is daytime and there's people. If you know Deja Vu, it's normally evening.
Yeah.
So the venue was so happy. Everyone was happy. So towards the end of the event, actually before I get there, what was funny is this whole thing started with me wanting to sell my clothes.
Your clothes, but then it became
so
a big
busy.
thing.
It was so busy, and there were so many people there that I didn't even get to unpack my clothes from the car.
So you didn't even sell your clothes?
I didn't even sell my clothes. I sold a few, so people came to me saying, Eli, where's your stuff? And I was like, oh, I'm too busy. I can't man my stall and man all these other people. And they were like, well, what do you have? And I was like, okay. So I literally went to the car and I was like, this is what you can get. So a few people just bought straight from the car, but I didn't even set up my thing. Because I had to go around, check on everyone's having a good time, music, all that stuff. And that first one as well, we had so many media houses come. We had like KTN, BBC, NTV, they all came to that first event. First event. And but what I would say as well is all of that was just my connections as well. So like people at BBC, they were just my friends that happened to be anchors. So they were like, we want to come and cover your event. NTV, we want to come and cover. But it wasn't like official, it was just, Eli, this looks good, give me a call.
Okay.
So, because that event went so well, towards the end, when I was going and checking on the vendors, because now it turned into a business, like I had to check on my people that paid me money. And these are the lessons I learned before, if you remember, from my friend in events. I was like, you have to check on every single person. So when I was having conversations with them, the one thing they were saying at like 6 o'clock and it finished at 6:30 is, one, can we extend this? Can it go longer? And I was like, no, because there's another crowd coming. And two, when's the next one, right?
When's the next one?
So, yeah.
If I can cut you short, the venue.
Yeah.
Because I know sometimes getting a venue for an event, the money that you're being required to give is a lot. How did it go for you to get the
So a few minutes ago, when I mentioned the leverage, so when I said that the influencers are happy, I'm happy, the vendors are happy, the venue is also happy as well. So what it is actually instead of them charging me to come to the event, I was charging them a percentage of their take-ins because I'm bringing a daytime crowd. So I just flipped the model. I was like, no, if I'm bringing these people, I'm not going to pay for the space. You pay me because I'm bringing the people. It's a similar thing. If you're hiring a top DJ and he's bringing an audience, you're paying the DJ, right? So it's the same thing. If I'm not a DJ, I'm not an entertainer, but I'm bringing the same crowd. So the same way you'd pay him, you need to pay me. Every venue is different. So you have to look at the value add. Some venues, there's not immediate revenue they can gain from it if they don't have a bar, if they don't have a restaurant. So that's when you have to maybe negotiate differently, because Deja Vu, they can make money off drink, they can make money off food.
Yeah.
If you go to a venue where they don't have that, or maybe it's third party that are benefiting, like their tenants or something, you might have to restructure the arrangement. But for most venues where they're making money, it's flipped. So I have not paid for a venue.
Yet?
No.
For all the
No.
events I've done?
No, I haven't paid for a venue. No. It's just down to leverage, like I was mentioning. Yeah.
Okay. So now, first event, before it ends, you're very busy.
Yes.
Some of the lessons that you've learned
Okay.
doing your first event.
Okay, the lessons I learned doing the first event. Sorry, the last thing I said. So when they asked me the question of what's the next one, this ties into the lesson, is I said, in a month. I just said, it's going to be in a month, right?
So you just said it, but
I
you
just
didn't
said it, and
okay.
I had no idea what's going to happen. Like I was like, I've got 4 weeks now to do another event, which ties into the lesson. There's good things and bad things from that. There's a good thing where you're being brazen and you're just like, I can do this, fine. Like now I have a deadline, which is one thing I love, deadlines, right? So I put a deadline on myself. The bad thing is I put a deadline on myself without having any sort of idea of how this is going to work in terms of trying to market another event. Luckily, because when something's successful, the next one's obviously going to be successful if you plan and if you're organized, right?
Yeah.
So the lesson I learned there from the event, interesting, a lesson I learned from the first event, I think delegation, because what I found myself doing is literally carry, and to be fair, no, I do like hard work. I like hard work, but sometimes work smart, not hard.
Yeah.
Right? So that first event, I found myself literally carrying the tables myself, like physically cleaning myself, and I was like, wait a minute, this could have been delegated to someone else, so that I'm not tired, so that by the time I'm doing an interview with like someone like BBC, I'm not fatigued. You know, my jeans aren't dirty from carrying stuff. So delegating is a lesson that I've learned as well. A lesson I've learned not from doing something wrong, but doing something right, is just really being transparent when you're dealing with anyone. And these are lessons I learned in Czech Republic and with my friend. And being really efficient. So I found that my vendors, as soon as they message me and they're like, we want a table with this, before the end of the day, everything's done. Like before the end of the day, you've got your table, you're paid, like it's done. So rather than having somebody wait, I've paid you money, I'm waiting, or getting a text like, you've not replied to this, like replying every single time, but it ties in with delegation. Sometimes it's very tiring because I don't have a team. So being really efficient and respecting the other person's, what they're giving you in value. So if somebody's paying you for something, one thing I've learned is make sure that that money, they don't feel like they're getting a raw deal. Not in terms of the results, but in terms of your service for that money. Because there's service and then there's results, right? Yeah, so focusing on both of those. But I would say I was doing that right. It's not a lesson that I learned from like complaints. Review things as well. So after every market now, what we've learned is like do a report, do a review, what went right, because in 6 months' time, you can't remember everything that happened in the lead up to that. Yeah. And final lesson I learned is how important leverage is. I always come back to leverage. Yeah. Nobody can sell your idea better than you. And if you sometimes try to use third party, you'll find that when they're trying to negotiate, they're thinking at the back of their mind, okay, how can I sort of get something? But if you do it yourself, then you're knowing both ends of what's going on. You're always in control. And even now when you do delegate, you've done it before, so there's no shortcuts that can be taken. And
I really, really love what you have said about leverage. And we did that live the other time, but you check it out. When we were talking about leverage is how you find a win-win situation with people who you're trying to work with.
Exactly.
Where you're offering services and there is a return on investment on both sides. Even if you're not paying, you're finding how both of you can find a balance. And I really think that you did that in your first event. Now, I've gone to many events, and many of them, I can say frankly that they were not good. Poorly planned, everything, no security, just a lot of few issues that were there in those events. Now, the reviews, your first event was perfect, and you were managing it alone. How did you actually do it? Did you have a team? Did you do it alone? Were you able to call everybody? What was happening? Did you have, because I know people who have Panadol. They take Panadol every single time. Yeah. What was happening during that time?
So the first event was me and my sister. So me and my sister were there, and that helped a lot. But what I found is You were only managing the event, you and your sister? Just us two, yeah.
The event was attended by how many people?
The first event, every event over the course of the day, you maybe have 1,000.
1,000.
And at one time, like maybe a few hundred in and out. Yeah. But over the course of the day, by the time it gets to 4:30, you've probably got around 400 people. Maybe, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you're managing 1,000 people, just you two, you and your sister.
So the really good thing about this model is that even when you arrive, so the main things I have to consider when I arrive is my vendors. That's my number one priority. Because the attendees, I don't need to micromanage or anything, but I need to just make sure my vendors are set up so that's where most of the stress comes. So we tried the model of designated tables, but then somebody comes and they're like, no, I'm here before this person, how comes can I switch? So the model we use now to ease stress is first come, first serve. So you come, you get your table, and then you start to vend. So if you come here early, you get a table. If you come here late, you can't complain that you haven't got a good spot because, you weren't here early.
Late, yeah.
So that took off some stress because I tried to do the delegation of tables and it didn't work as effectively. So my main focus every event is my vendors, because that's the core. And it kind of evolved from a business where I was just wanted to make money from my clothes to when all of those vendors messaged me the first time saying that, I want to get my small business out here. And I realized all these people were like under 25, all these vendors. And I was like, okay, there's something different here. This is now not even about looking like you're having a successful event or, looking good online or, just looking like you're doing something amazing. It's making sure that these vendors are making money and you're impacting these vendors. So it turned from that model. So even when it sounds crazy that it's just us two doing it, because I really care about these guys making money, over the course of the day I might get tired, but it doesn't feel like I'm doing it for no reason. Because if it was just for money, I'd be like, this doesn't equate to the amount of money I'm making. It makes good money, but it doesn't make enough for me to do that kind of effort. But when you've got the other factor of you're helping someone's business, it even takes away the fatigue. Yeah. So in short, in terms of managing the markets, after a few months, my sister went back to the UK. So I found that it was just me doing the market. So I've got 80, 90 vendors. It's just me doing the social media, just me doing the physical event when I'm there, dealing with the venue. Because my sister now is in university. So for 4 or 5 months, it was just me doing it. Then my brother would help occasionally, he'll come with a pickup, bring some tables and stuff like that. But once I found a model that worked, and this goes back to systemizing and being efficient, because I now found a model that I can actually do completely myself, it made it so much easier. So as soon as I get a text message or a payment, I've got a system. So within 45 seconds of somebody inquiring, they can have booked a table and they're done. Because now I figured it out. Yeah.
I want to ask you, what leverage did you use in terms of security? Because I think for me, before I go to an event, the first thing I consider is that event secure? And I know, because you have maybe 90 or more vendors, most of them don't even report that their things have been stolen or something have been stolen. What leverage do you use to ensure that you have security in your event?
Okay, so I think if we work backwards, the problem with security always happens when there's a lot of alcohol involved in an event, the event's in the evening, and anyone and everyone attends.
Okay.
When you have an event that's during the daytime, it's not about drinking, and it's about shopping and looking cute, creating content, making memories with your friends. It's not about live music, and with live music, comes stuff like recreational things, and that changes behavior, right? That's where security issues happen. And that's why I don't do night markets, because if you do a night market, that can now transition into something else. In terms of security and your question on leverage, when you're going to a venue, it's in their best interest that nothing happens bad at their venue. On my part, as well as an event, yes, I'm responsible for that as well. But a venue, most of the time, has their own security. I've never had not one incident, and I think it's because of the crowd as well. The crowd that I'm appealing to, the way we market, we don't just market to like anyone. We market to a certain demographic that wants to come and find clothes. They're coming with money, so they're not coming to steal. Yeah, so I've never had any issues.
So you knew your target audience. I really like that.
Yeah.
And there's a quote that says, I think it's from Lamborghini, we don't advertise our cars on telly because our clients don't watch TV.
Yeah.
Wow, I like that you knew your target audience. So now, how many events have you done those 1 year, 3 months?
13.
13.
And that's taken into account that, 13. That's taken into account that COVID has happened for 6 to 8 months. So we only just done our first one 2 weeks ago. We only just came back. So yeah, a couple of times we did like 2 in 1 month. But what I like to do is have it every 4 weeks so that you've got time to, I think I explained this model, time to market, time to let it breathe, time to get anticipation up, time to lock down venues, time to register venues.
Yeah, we'll get to the marketing part later. So now, in those 13 or so events, some of the greatest lessons you've learned in managing an event?
Greatest lesson?
To anybody who is out there who wants to start an event, maybe even a small event like a birthday party, things can go wrong. Maybe the person who's applying the cake is late. Maybe the person who's doing this is not there. The lesson that you've learned in those 13.
Okay. So the lesson I learned, and I learned this from my friend, I always want to give him props, because when I was working in IT and tech and events, so their company was a pioneer company in the UK, first one doing what they were doing. And so every time we had an event, it was me and him going around like the UK. So we'll be driving, do the event, come back. And what I learned is from start to finish, how important the client's needs are, right? So on his basis, it was maybe one parent is throwing an event. So your whole focus is making sure by the end of that event, that person leaves and says, thank you. They don't say, I'm going to message you about this happened. So that's from start to finish. That's from when they inquire. That's from being polite on the phone. That's from like start to when you finish, because you'll find that references are very important. They're so important. So if somebody comes to the event as a vendor or as an attendee, and then they say to one of their friends in a group chat, this wasn't great, then that just means your next event, that's going to now impact you. So the lesson I learned is just making sure like you put ego out of the way. You're going to get talked to in some type of way sometimes, but you have to understand it's business. So you have to just make sure that person leaves there feeling they've had a good time. So there's two people to think about, the vendors and attendees. So yeah, just making sure that their needs are paramount.
Oh. Yeah. Another reason why people don't go to events is that the way the event was marketed. Nowadays, I see events, how the market is just get a few influencers, talk about the event. But how are you able, when you're starting, and maybe now, let's go back to when you're starting, the marketing strategy that you used that helped you to actually move from a balcony, from a small restaurant to Deja Vu, the marketing strategy that you used?
I think, interesting, yeah, it's a very good question actually. It comes quite organically, because me and my sister were genuinely quite creative, and because we do digital content online ourselves, there's nobody better to market than somebody that does this without being paid. So because we've been on social media for a while, we think about what we would respond to. And because we want our demographic to be similar to us, our age group above and below, we always think, okay, what would they respond to? What references will they respond to? So that's how we always approach it. We also take into account our background growing up in the UK in terms of the digital space. I'd say it's slightly more advanced because it's been around there for a bit longer. So we draw from how we responded to our favorite shops, and now we use that in a Kenyan context. So in terms of strategy, I think timing is really important. We normally, because we do it every month, we give ourselves 1 month to market. That includes getting vendors registered, getting attendees to be aware of the event, right? So the model we use is so if we've had an event on a Saturday, the next week we're going to start posting pictures from the event, right? So now to get FOMO, you know, I didn't come to that event, that looks good. I'm now waiting for the next announcement. So yeah, so from that gets people like aware, thinking, okay, that looks good. Everyone was posting pictures from that event. So that's the first week to 2 weeks, and you're using that content. What's difficult there is where you're trying to do good, where you're trying to help. I'm sure you're familiar with this because you're in the photography space. We welcome photographers. We're like, come through. As soon as you're done, can you make sure you send us the content, because value add, we're going to post you, influencers come to our event, they'll tag you, you're going to... So they always come and they're so happy with who they've managed to network with. On my side, as an event person, I'll get the photos when the next event is, like in 4 weeks' time, you know. So that's my struggle there, actually, in terms of photographers. So as much as I want to get the content from them and I want them to have the creative control, it's always a struggle the first week, because an ideal situation is the evening of the event, you've sent me the photo, so in the next morning I can start posting. But that happens occasionally, sometimes not all the time. So that's normally the model. So first few weeks we post photos. Then going into the next week of the month, so no, let's say first week. Next week of the month is when we start to now appeal to vendors. Registration is now open. Then that gives us 3 weeks to get them locked in, right? So registration's open, then they can start to register. Gradually it starts building up. So now I'm like, okay, now they know about that. We'll keep reminding them as it goes on, but that's announced.
Yeah.
Then now it's like we need to market to the attendees, isn't it? So we have to use throwbacks, use nostalgia. You know, this was so cool. You should come to this. These are products, and then try to not make it too serious and too corporate, because I've had conversations with I won't say but I've had conversations with like some malls in Kenya that have wanted us to do work together. And when I look at the page, it's like it's too corporate. Like it's too. I don't care about the content. I'm seeing a really well done picture in a really good background, but there's nothing funny. There's nothing creative in the captions. So what we try to do is not look too like professional. We want to look like because here's the thing: when you're scrolling on Instagram yourself, right? Question: when you're scrolling on Instagram, if you see a picture of this sofa in a shop and it's got like the price and this, you don't really care. You're just like, oh, cool, that's a product. You keep going. But if you see somebody like you care about in the sofa, or you see a funny, you know, the Friends thing where they're trying to move the sofa, and you see something to do with the sofa, you're like, okay, now I've paid attention. I might even swipe to see what the next thing is, and I click.
Yeah, it's true.
So rather than just taking a picture perfectly of a sofa, do something to do with the sofa, but make it creative. You know, make it something that someone would be like, okay, why are they talking about the sofa? So that's what we try to use. We don't just say, you know, here's a good DJ. We take a picture. We'll take a video of somebody dancing near the DJ. You know, so that's the kind of model we use for the next 3 weeks, and then we just keep repeating that every month, and it seems to have worked. Basically,
the knowledge and the wisdom, guys. Thank you so much for that. I'll use that. Please allow me to use that strategy. Okay. So now, because I've seen a lot of events being planned, then the D-Day comes, there's no event. Or the 3-4 people coming, sponsors have already outed the event. So for you, is there something that could have made your event not happen, and then you prevented it? And how did you prevent it?
Yes, that's happened. So actually I won't say exactly which market, because then if you go back, you know exactly the venue I'm talking about. I've had venues where we've locked them down, and then a week before the event, they say they can't do it because of this and this and this and this and this. And I'm like, okay, so now I have to find a new venue. I have to inform my attendees, make sure nobody goes to the wrong venue. That's stress. And I had a week to do that. That's happened. That was the closest the option, actually, the option was never to not have the event. Even when that happened, it was just... You were to cancel the event? No, I'm saying that was never an option in my mind. It was never an option. I was like, I've got all these people, they've paid me money. I've been building this up for a month. Another solution. It's now, this is where the buck stops now with me. Like, and I think I said this last time, I don't like, even just in life in general, it's not your fault what that the situation is, but it's your responsibility to figure out how you navigate from that situation. So even though I can say, oh, it's the venue's fault, I can even say to everyone, look, this venue messed us up, you know, sorry about that, it's not my fault, but as somebody that's marketing the event, it is my fault, it's my responsibility. I engaged in a venue that wasn't reliable. So when that situation happens, I'm like, it's now, I have to take all that stress. At this point, my sister was in the UK, had a few phone calls, but she's trying to do her degree. So I remember I was sat in News Cafe in Sarah Centre, and I was like, okay, I've just had this announcement. I've got, I think, 65 vendors. I've got all these people like, I'm so looking forward to the event, la la. I was like, okay, I've got 6 days to figure out a new venue. So I was like, I'm not leaving this restaurant until I've locked down a new venue, basically. So that was just 2 hours, 3 hours of just complete stress. I went back to the same model of using leverage, like I've done an event at your venue. Can I do it again? No, we've got somebody else. Okay, what if I offer you something better than the other person? Okay, cool. And I got a venue. But that was the closest I've had. The only downside with events that you can never predict is weather. So actually the last event we did, which was a few weeks ago, the first one back, is it rained. And that's something you can't ever plan for. You can make provisions, but you know. So what happened a few weeks ago, if anyone was at the Sarah Centre one, is, like I said, it gets busy at 4:30 or 4. It rained at 3:30 when everyone's starting to arrive, right? So that's where you're like, okay, we've done the event now. At this point, this is God now. I can't, you know what I mean? I can't stop rain.
Yeah.
But so that's the only side. I've had 2 events where it's rained. That's it. And when that happens, people generally understand. People still have a good time. People are still dancing, having a good time in the event, still taking photos. So yeah, those are the only 2 times where it's been like, this is not ideal.
Wow, because I've actually seen things that are happening with events being cancelled the last minute or venues changing. So now we actually understand. So it actually lies on proper planning for the event.
Yeah.
Any lesson that you've learned, maybe just capitalize on one lesson that you've learned in planning for an event.
Be reliable and available. So especially being available, right? So if sometimes like I said, I do like 5 other businesses, yeah? No matter where I am, if I'm getting a call from a vendor, like you have to be able to call that person, but there's no option where you don't communicate. I think, let me change it to communicating. Communicating. Because that goes with the venue, that goes with the attendees, that goes with social media, goes with the vendors. Just communicating and letting people have all the information, like in advance and all of it. You know, don't like hold anything back. Like this might happen. Don't have ifs. You know, just communicate exactly what's going to happen. Let everyone have information and keep everyone up to date. And me and my sister, I give her credit for this. She gives too much information. Like she'll keep emailing you. Like, by the way, this. Because she deals with, now she's graduated, she deals with a lot of the communicating with vendors, emails. So I'd actually give her credit in terms of the company. Like she is on it. Like micromanages every detail. Yeah, and over information. And I think that's what comes back to the slightly different upbringing and background for her side. You know, just the stuff that she's done back. She's done events back there as well. I've done events back in the UK, and they run efficiently because of communicating. So yeah, that's what I would say is the biggest.
So you ran events back in UK, and you're here.
No, sorry. So context. My sister, and actually, let me give her credit as well. So one of the things that happened before we came to Kenya is there was an event called Black Girl Fest in London, and it was essentially these 2 girls. They decided to do an event where it was just black girls, businesses, and their vendors. And my sister had a business, the clothing business, and she went to that event. And that was actually where we were like, okay, you can make something really cool with young people that are coming. So that actually influenced Instamarket. So credit to my sister and those girls. So she was a vendor at an event. I, in terms of events, was working with my friend all around the UK, Southeast, doing events as well. So that's the lessons that we got from that. Yeah. Oh,
wow. So now, finishing about the events, any advice you can give to people who actually want to start in the industry, or have been in the industry, maybe are working under people, want to start their own venture? What can you tell them in regards, because you've been in there for a while?
Yeah.
So what can you advise them, those who want to be in this industry of events?
Find out why you're doing the event. Why are you doing the event? Because honestly, if I'm very honest, if I did that first market, right, I sold my clothes, I made money from other vendors or influencers that I'm charging to come, and I was like, okay, I've made money, done. Like, if it was money, then I wouldn't have, cared to sit in News Cafe for those 2 hours. Like, I need to get a new event. But when it becomes more than money, like I mentioned, where you've got small businesses, you're seeing impact that you're having on these people, that's where it becomes more than money. And so my reason for doing an Insta market is now more than money. It's about getting an email later saying, oh my God, I came to your event, I made money. I'll give you one story of a girl. I think I posted this on my Instagram. She came for the second Insta market over a year ago. And so I was walking through a mall, Village Market actually. I was walking past, and Village Market were having a event where it was just artists. So all around Village Market, people had their easels and they were selling art. So I walked past this girl, and she was like, oh, can I talk to you for a second? In my mind, she wants to sell me her art piece. I'm in a rush, I have a meeting. So I was like, oh no, sorry, I love your stuff, but I can't. And I'm walking, she goes, no, Eli, honestly. And I'm like, oh, she knows my name, that's bizarre. So I'm like, okay, let's have a conversation. So she's like, yeah, I just wanted to thank you. And I was like, thank me for what? Like, what's going on here? She's like, I came to your Insta market a year ago, to the second one. And I was like, okay. And she was like, yeah, and I've been in Nairobi ever since. And I was like, where did you come from? She was like, I came from Mombasa to attend your Insta market. And I was like, hold on, wait. So we sat down. I was like, tell me the story, because this is insane. And then she was like, yeah, I came from Mombasa. I quit my job because I wanted to do art. And so I don't think she quit the first time. So she came for the event. She got so many connections and commissions from that event. She sold so many of her art pieces that she was like, this money can last for a while, right? If I deliver to all these people and I've made some money in my pocket, I can stay in Nairobi for a bit. And then from those connections, she made more connections, came to other markets, and since then she's not left Nairobi. So because she was still in Nairobi, she quit her job, carried on doing art because that's what she wanted to do, and Instamarket helped her do that. So when she told me that story, I was like, wow. So you're doing what you wanted to do because you came to one of my events. She was like, yeah, all my connections, not all of them, my connections came from there. Obviously it's all to do with hard work, but the fact that we were a vehicle to make that happen is what makes me think, okay, no, there's no way no amount of stress or no amount of things going wrong can make me not want to do the event. So that's why I want to say to people, if you want to do an event or anything, you have to realize, like, it's going to come to a point where it's going to be too hard if you don't have a really good reason to carry on doing it. So with events, the same reason. Don't throw an event because you want to be looked at as somebody that's really capable of doing it. Why? Who's benefiting apart from yourself?
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you for that. So we're gonna finish on with fashion, because I know there's not a lot to talk about in fashion. Just tell us something you do with fashion. Is the clothing line still on? Can you still buy clothes? Tell us any experience have you had with fashion, and if anybody wants to start a clothing line, what should they do?
Okay. In terms of clothing, my clothing line story, and I tell this story because I'm not scared of showing failures, right? So my clothing line, it's not been a failure. It's been something that I had to rethink. So when I came, obviously before you do any venture, you do market research. So I said to guys, how much do you spend on a jacket? How much do you spend on a shirt? And they were like, this much. And I was like, okay, cool. Work backwards. I can get it for you for that much. Now to get somebody to now actually buy is a different ballgame. And like I mentioned, in terms of having a completely digital store, like a website, you buy, you order. That's what I used to do back home. I buy all my clothes just online. But here, people didn't want to do it that much. They wanted to either see it or do it via DMs, and they didn't want to just buy from a website. So I was like, okay, so I did that, and then when the event happened, I didn't have a chance to actually sell my items. And then it kind of evolved from me wanting to sell my brand to focusing on Instamarket and other people's brands. So having had 2 clothing businesses, one in the UK, the one thing I learned from that one is I went into partnership with one of my best friends at the time, and my work ethic and his work ethic didn't align. So that I was like, okay, I can't be putting in money and effort and yours doesn't align. I'd rather close it and do it myself. So when I came to Kenya, I was like, this is my chance to do it myself. So with fashion, before you're trying to make a fashion brand or before you're trying to, sell your clothes, really have a strong clientele or have pre-orders before you've even made the item. So yeah, try and have it so that people have maybe paid, so your expenses don't go, you're not paid for something and then now you're trying to sell it, have it that people have paid, then you have to try and source it, So even in terms of what I'm doing in fashion at the moment, I mentioned House of Eli was going to be imported clothes. What I found as well is I didn't care about importing clothes that much because that was purely money, right? But where my creative side comes in is where I like to design clothes. So that's why I was like, if I'm doing something to do with creative, something designing, it has to be really well thought out and more time put into it. And again, that again won't be more to do with revenue. It will be more to do with me liking the designs. So where I am right now with clothing and House of Eli or Hofeli is I've designed some collections and I'm going to gradually announce that, but I'm not rushing that because I've got so many other things I'm doing. If I'm doing the clothing, it has to be done. I'm a perfectionist when it comes to clothes, so like, it has to be done very well. So yeah, that's my fashion and the House of Eli thing at the moment where I am. That's why I say it's not that it's been a failure, it's been that I've postponed until it's perfect, basically.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. I love the way I was talking to you about the talking points for today, and you're like, what career? I'm an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
So, any lessons as we finish that you've learned from being an entrepreneur that you can just give us, then any last words that you have for us?
Okay. As an entrepreneur, here's the thing. I struggle when people ask me for advice in the entrepreneur world because I'm 28. And one thing, a pet peeve of mine is when I'm on Instagram and I see a 19-year-old giving life advice. You know, I'm like, what do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I struggle with telling people to do something in the entrepreneur world. What I can say, it's not advice, I'll just tell you what I've done, right? One thing I'd say is, and I've learned from my dad, is integrity when you do anything to do with business, because you'll find that there's instances where you handle a lot of money, you handle other people's money, and you handle clients' money. And there's so many chances you have to skim, or there's so many opportunities. And that's just what entrepreneurship is, right? So if you have integrity, you never know when it's going to come back and someone's going to be like, actually, he handled all that money and not even a penny was lost. So I can come back again, and you'll find that you'll have even more opportunities from that. So I think that would be my main thing. Because even on my side as well, I've experienced other people that haven't got integrity. Not extremes, like I've not lost a lot of money. It's not a sob story, but I've seen where I'm like, okay, from the way you're acting, I can't do business with you. So I just say integrity is the most important thing. And another thing is friendships and business. It can be fantastic or it can be a disaster. So you have to really be hesitant before you enter any venture, like with a friend. And no matter how good your friendship is, have a buffer whereby if you go down, I go down. Even if it's your best friend. Like, it can't be that you've put all this in, you've got more to lose than somebody else. Because, like they say, it's a dog eat dog, especially when it comes to business. And money can change people. So that's what I would say. Final thing, in terms of relations, in terms of business especially, and I think this is generally like in life, it's not advice, but this is what I do. When somebody shows you something the first time, right? If you're about to do a deal with someone, and then or you hear somebody talking about business that doesn't align with your morals, or it doesn't align with integrity, even if it's about someone else, just know that person can do the same thing they're saying about somebody else to you. So if somebody says you're talking about someone's business, and they're like, yeah, they say something negative about someone's business, or I would duplicate that business, or I do that, just know that the same energy they would give that person, they'll do it to you too. So just listen to what people are saying, not what they're doing. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Thank you so much. Any last words for us, just for the people who are watching you right now?
Okay, so because we didn't go into fashion that much, I'll give a few tips on fashion for guys. Number one thing for fashion is, because I feel like we've talked about a lot of life lessons, let's end it like. When it comes to clothing, it's one thing that is so important is fit. Like, I feel like people can spend a lot of money on clothes and trends where it's meant to be either too baggy or too skinny or too tight. And if you want to ever look presentable, the one thing is fit. So even if someone's like, right now, baggy jeans are in, like really baggy jeans are in a few months' time, it won't be in. You look at the picture and you want to kill yourself because you'll be like, how did I wear that? But if your fashion is simple, it's well fitted, then no matter how old you are, wherever you are in life, whatever room you're entering, you're fine, right? Another thing is a really good tip of fashion. If you don't know what to wear, or if you're going somewhere and you're like, it's like they say, like it's kind of casual, it's kind of smart, but you don't know, just wear all black. Just wear all black. If you don't know what to do, just wear all black, well fitted. You can go into any room. Like, even if someone's wearing like a full suit, like you're wearing something much smarter.
Am I good? Am I good
You're
today?
great. You're great because you've really complimented the
Thank
time.
you very much. Thank you very much.
Yeah. So even if somebody's wearing like a three-piece, if you're wearing a well-fitted black t-shirt, black jeans, black shoes, you can stand next to that guy and feel comfortable. That's why you find like all these like billionaires and stuff, they're just wearing all black and they still look respectable because black just works. Another thing, and you've done it well, is to do with tie. These are just little tips. To do it, never match your tie with your pocket square. Yeah.
I knew that, guys.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Thank
that's
you.
what I say. You've done it well. Don't match your tie with your pocket square. It's supposed to be a different design. If you want to look slimmer on the bottom, wear black. If you want to look bigger on the top, wear light colors.
I feel like you're just complimenting me. Thank you very much.
No, yeah, I mean, yeah, this basically do what Joe's
Thank you
doing
very
because.
No,
you look fantastic.
I really appreciate it.
But yeah, and simplicity. Simplicity is really key with clothing.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I appreciate you, man.
No worries, man. Thanks
Cheers.
for having me.
I really appreciate. Thank you
Thanks,
so much
Yeah.
for coming to the show.
Thank you.
Thank
All
you,
the
man.
best with this. I love what you're doing here.
Appreciate
I love
you.
the conversations you're having.
I appreciate you. I think we're done with that interview with Eli Mwenda himself. If there's anything else that you want to add, anything else you want to ask, just type it down in the comment section. Eli will be able to come there and respond to your questions. Just a reminder that this show comes to you in partnership with Frame Studios Production. Till next time, be good, do good, and always look good.